You're listening to Girls with Grafts, a burn community podcast created by Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, a leading nonprofit dedicated to supporting the burn community. In this podcast, we'll talk with burn survivors, share resources to help with supporting and improving burn recovery, and discuss how to prevent burn injuries. Here are your hosts, burn survivors and Phoenix Society's marketing team, Amber Wilcox and Rachel Kudlak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Girls with Grafts. I am Rachel Kudlak. I'm one of the hosts of the show, and I'm joined today by my lovely co-host, Amber Wilcox.
Hi there. So excited for another great episode of Girls with Grafts.
So am I. I'm enjoying, fall. This is my favorite time of year. We're heading into the holidays. I'm looking forward to enjoying the end of the year. So before we get started, do you want to quickly thank today's podcast sponsor?
Absolutely. Today's podcast is powered by the National Fire Protection Association. NFPA is a nonprofit that seeks to save lives and reduce loss with information, knowledge, and passion. Learn more about fire safety and explore their educational resources by visiting www.nfpa.org. They're definitely one of my favorite partners that we have here at Phoenix Society.
Yes, no, definitely. We are so thankful for NFPA's ongoing support of the podcast and Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors. So without further ado, let me introduce today's guest. So today's guest is Allie Moll. Allie is a 20-year-old. She's 20 years old and became a burn survivor at the age of 1.5 when she fell into a campfire, I believe. She's currently in college at University of Washington, Madison, studying to become an occupational therapist. So thank you so much, Allie, for joining us today.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Allie, so what we like to do is always start off with our survivors of telling us a little bit more about your injury. It sounds like you were a child burn survivor, but can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, when I was 2.5, we were camping at a campground, and this was before they had like the safety rings around the fire, and so it was just a hole in the ground, and I was just in my imagination, and I just fell into the hole in the ground.
Yeah, and sorry for messing that up in your bio. I must have missed the one. It just said 1.5, and I was like, well, I'm gonna guess with 1, but we'll get confirmation of how old you were. But obviously, being burned at such a young age, what was that like, kind of growing up for you? How much do you remember of those early days? Can you just kind of walk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, I don't remember a whole lot from the initial injury because I was so young, but I did have a couple revision surgeries since then, so I definitely remember those, and then also just like growing up and looking different in like school setting and all of that. And then one thing that always like stuck with me, I guess, is like each year when you have a different class, it's kind of having to like re-explain what it is, and what happened because people don't know. And yeah,
no, definitely. Well, tell us a little bit more too about, your family support or just your support system growing up, if you, felt supported by them, or kind of walk us through a little bit of that.
Yeah, my parents are my biggest supporters, and so I'm super lucky in that department. I have a very supportive family, and honestly, like, wouldn't be here without them. So it was really great to have really everyone in my family, but specifically my parents there for me with everything.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know for me too, because I was burned when I was 3, as our listeners know, and, having that family support is just so important. It really can make a, huge difference in your journey as a burn survivor when you do have, your loved ones or, local support or whatever it may be. That support is so important, regardless of age too, but especially for, children burn survivors.
For sure.
So I think growing up as a burn survivor, and Rachel can probably relate to this more than I can. Tell me a little bit about like the support you got from like the friends and family or your school relationships. What was that like?
Yeah, I don't remember a whole lot like specifically about my burns. There definitely was like it was hard as a kid because kids don't always understand and they see it more as like an issue. So that was always challenging. But I did have like my family support. And then like my surgeon was super supportive and just, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned kind of like going to that new class every year and having to retell your story. I know for me personally, that transition from elementary school to middle school was really tough. And the transition I went to a pretty small school, so everyone who was in my middle school was at my high school. But then going from high school to college wasn't as rough, but definitely still a big transition. Kind of what was like that for you growing up? Did you have a similar, was every year, so hard? Was there a certain part that, really was challenging in that transition?
Yeah, I guess it was kind of like the transition between schools. So like middle school, it's like once you get like that new group of people, I guess, and they don't know, then that's always like a thing. But I guess for like transition into like high school and then also into college, it kind of is hard because people can like see your scars, but then it's like you're at the age where you don't just like blurt it out like you would if you're like an elementary schooler. So it's like people feel awkward asking. So it's like that kind of like, do they ask? Do they not ask? Is it, hard for me to talk about? Like, it's just kind of tricky situation. So then like in my head, I kind of assume that everybody knows, but then in reality, a lot of people don't know because they don't want to ask.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And, sometimes it's put on the survivor to bring it up, which isn't always fair, of course, but, especially with teenagers and young adults who don't necessarily know what to say or how to ask, it's almost a little, I guess from my perspective, it was always like, I would rather kind of almost make them feel a little awkward for knowing that, like, I know you want to ask what my scars are, like, how did I get them, but you're too scared to. So let me make you feel a little awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously we're talking about kind of growing up, but how do you think, your burn injury has shaped the way you see yourself today and maybe the confidence you've built over time and, being a young adult? How has that injury really impacted you?
Yeah, I think the biggest impact it's had is kind of my like career aspirations. As you mentioned, I want to go into occupational therapy and I'd love to work as like a burn occupational therapist. And I guess that like passion developed really from my own experiences. So just having those revision surgeries and working with the occupational therapists, it just really made me recognize like the role they play. And I just thought it was super cool and interesting. And it definitely formed this passion to want to do that. And so I'm super excited for that and grateful to have those personal experiences to hopefully get me to those goals.
When you're studying, is it something where today you share your story with others, like in maybe college or like in some of your occupational therapy classes?
Yeah, I haven't had any like specific classes yet, but I definitely have like told some people because kind of the same thing, like once you meet new people, everyone kind of wants to know. So I definitely have shared my story. And then also like when I get asked like, oh, why do you want to do OT? I do share that personal experience. And yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just curious, were there other, healthcare professions that maybe you explored, but you maybe didn't decided weren't a fit for you? I know, when I first was, looking at colleges, I wanted to be a physical therapist. And I was like, I thought I wanted to go into healthcare and I tried nursing and I did some shadowing. I was like, nope, I'm out. This is not for me. I give it nurses so much credit because there's so much that goes into that, but I knew that wasn't for me. So I'm just curious, was it something like you, or like what made you pick occupational therapy?
Yeah, I definitely thought about nursing. That was kind of like one of those options they had, but then I kind of liked the like specialty of OT, and just more so like nurses do so much, like you mentioned, and I just kind of liked having that specialty, and also I liked the idea of like working with people to get back to like things that they love, and like recovery and stuff. Another option I was thinking about more so when I was younger was being like a sports medicine doctor. I played sports growing up, and so I always thought that would be a fun one. But ultimately, I decided too much school, and also, I got that connection with the occupational therapist, and I really fell in love with that.
So, Allie, I understand you're a SOAR supporter now as well. Is that, yeah? So, tell me a little bit about like what made you want to do that or sign up for that? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I really wanted to just volunteer in the hospital in general. And then once I kind of figured out what the SOAR program was, I was super excited about that because the burn community means a lot to me, and I'd love to just give back in any way possible. And so I thought that doing like a program like this would really be a good opportunity to give back as much as possible. So, yeah.
Have you had the chance to go into the hospital and actually this yet, or did you just get trained and like have you had your first kind of official day in the hospital?
I just got trained last month, and so I've gone into the hospital, but I haven't seen any patients yet.
Cool.
That's
I'm sure you're
awesome.
very excited for that first time.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Did you, Allie, obviously since you were young, probably didn't have a peer support visit when you were a child, but I wasn't sure if you, were kind of introduced to any types of peer support, like whether that was a camp for burn survivors or something along those lines. Like, did you go through or have any of those experiences?
Yeah, so I never had a peer supporter at the time of my injury. And then once I became the age of like 6, I think it is, when you can start going to camp, my care team and surgeons reached out, and they really were trying to get me to go to camp. But at that age, I was like super scared about doing sleepaway camp, and it just wasn't going to happen for me because it's just too nervous about it. But I actually decided to go to camp when I was 18 for the first time. And so I had aged out of the like camper part.
Yeah.
But then I was able to go and be like a counselor in training type of thing. So I did that. I've done that for 3 years now. And
Very
I just
cool.
love it.
Yeah, no, that's
Allie,
awesome.
I don't know if you shared are your scars visible, like, or are they hidden burns?
They are visible. It's my whole left arm and leg.
So when you are maybe out today, especially I feel like college, right, is a little bit of a different experience. Do you have folks that ask you about your scars in public, or how do you handle kind of like questions?
I haven't had anybody recently ask me in public. And then as for like questions, kind of what I was talking about earlier, I can like tell that they want to ask, but don't necessarily like feel comfortable or something. So I've either brought it up or I just like wait until they're like, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and for our listeners, I'm curious kind of what your advice would be for, maybe a new burn survivor who does have visible scarring, who is getting, those stares or maybe even getting some questions. Like, what advice would you give to them to, talk about it, or just any advice in general for, those public outings, going to college and things like that?
Yeah, I would just say like talk about it proudly. Like obviously it's a big part of your life, and had probably many impacts on everything you do. And I just don't want people to be ashamed of it, because I think you should be like proud of your scars and not like embarrassed to show them. And I get that it's awkward when people want to ask about it or have those questions, or they're just staring. But I would just say tell them what happened, and, show what you have.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And, kind of on the flip side, but I'm also curious, what advice or tips you would give to parents of, young burn survivors. Obviously,
You stole my question, because I was going to ask, what's your relationship with your parents like, right? So do you guys have a good relationship? And specifically, how does that surround your scars as well?
Yeah, for me, my parents are like my best friends. And so I've always been so supported by them, which has been so great. And for kind of like you were saying, for other parents, I would just say to be really supportive, I feel like is really helpful, because that's something I had. And so I never was embarrassed to tell my parents oh, I'm getting picked on, or that type of thing. And just having that support of it's okay, it's
How
your
did they handle
scars.
those situations if they did happen, right? Especially when you were younger.
Yeah, they would just tell me that there's nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed of. You survived this, you went through it, and just to be proud of who you are and how your burns have shaped who you are, and just acknowledge that. And if people are going to be rude about it, then they're not people you really want to be surrounded by anyways.
That's awesome. Well, kudos to your parents, because it sounds like they are definitely sending you in the right direction. Did they ever have to talk to teachers or anything, or did they just want you to handle it on your own?
It never got bad to talk to teachers or anything. It was never a super big issue, so that was nice.
Well, you seem to also have a very positive outlook on it, and I think that's a reflection of your parents as well. So I'll give them a shout out from us for sure.
Yeah. And Ellie, I know I didn't ask you this ahead of time, so if you don't feel comfortable sharing, that's totally okay. But I'm also just curious about, what dating has been like for you, and talking to, others in a more of a romantic relationship about your scars. And if, I guess just in general, how your confidence has been about that. Is that something that you've been struggling with? I know for a lot of our survivors in our community, that can be a really difficult thing to overcome, is getting back out there and meeting new people.
Yeah, I would say it hasn't had a huge impact on my dating life, I guess. I feel sometimes I'm worried about what people will think, or if it'll be an issue, but it hasn't really. I mean, I haven't really had any experiences with that so far.
Well, that's great to hear. And definitely something that I think when you find the right person, right, the same way that you're talking about friends, if someone has an issue with it, then it's probably not someone I'd want to date anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I know my husband, right, he'll say, and he's like, I always don't mean this as an insult to you, but I don't see them anymore, right? I don't. And I said, well, I see them every day, and it's really hard for me. But it's different when you the person that you love just doesn't see the physical as much as seeing who you are. So I appreciate my husband for that, but also understand that sometimes comments like that can be, okay, well, I see them, right? So when you find the person you love, it's definitely those don't matter to them in a way that is appreciated, but also, I have to explain to him sometimes I still struggle with it, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I know I'm kind of going off topic here, but just to speak on that too a little bit. Yeah, I think those comments, because Brett makes the same ones, are so interesting. And even parents and family and friends of
and not in a mean way.
Yeah. And then it's but I appreciate that you don't talk about my scars and don't talk about my burn injury, but at the same time, I wouldn't talk about it sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I
We
mean?
talk about it. Yes.
Yeah.
I
And I
also
think,
know my husband is the first to like get defensive, and I don't know, Allie, if you've had this experience yet, but like if someone does say something, right, that's like whether it's a family member or somebody I know that like maybe isn't like the right thing to say, my husband gets quick to like defensive even before me, right? Sometimes I get like freeze, and so it's always helpful to have people that support you that make you feel like they've got your back regardless.
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
So I have questions because I know we may get a little off topic here, but sometimes that's fun to do. Tell me a little bit about what you do in college, and kind of above and beyond. Like, do you participate in extracurriculars? What kind of things do you do in your spare time for fun? What maybe TV do you watch? I'm always into that. So let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm actually in a sorority in college.
Very
So
cool.
that's a big part of kind of my extracurricular things to do. I'm trying to think. TV, I've been watching Selling Sunsets is what I'm watching currently. They just came out with a new season. So I was
always in for that. Yeah.
And then me and my roommates are watching Dancing with the Stars too.
Please tell me, because we have JR that's always on this podcast, and I'm always like heavily into knowing a little bit about what your thoughts are. So tell me who you're rooting for this season.
I think I'm rooting for Alex and Val.
Oh, okay.
I like them. I also like Robert and Whitney, but
Robert and Whitney's mine. So after JR shared that his feelings on Val during one of our episodes, and I feel like after that I can't root for Val. So and I won't give away any of the spoilers, but Val just has too much of a personality that I don't think I could deal with him long term. So I like Alex, but I can't root for her because of Val. But Robert and Whitney are I'm on team Robert and Whitney all the way. So how about you, Rachel?
Yeah, it's tough because I do also like Alex and Val. I don't like Val, but I do like, I think Alex and Val show like how you can come into the show is like maybe with a little dance experience and like actually get way better. So like I think she's like most improved for the season.
I also I'm a hardcore Secret Life of Mormon Wives fan, and so I'm a big Whitney and Mark fan. So if you haven't watched it, I'd like highly recommend it. And I think Whitney's killing it out there.
Yeah.
But I'm also I just watched last night's episode, and I feel like Andy Richter, even though like he's not the best dancer, he's like they said, the people's choice, and so I feel like just for that he's just so cute. And I think that's how I also feel about Robert and Whitney, is that Robert is just the cutest human on the planet, and just the most genuine person that I feel like he deserves to win, because I also liked his sister. But
and I love Whitney too, so
I also I have a like soft spot for Whitney, so I feel like I genuinely like hope they make it to the end. Yeah, unfortunately, like because of Val, I can't root for Alex. So I know it sounds terrible, but this is the JR insight. And I feel like I've heard a couple things about him after that I was just like, it's like when you find someone that you just don't feel like is a nice person, you can't continue to root for them. So
I do also love Dylan and Daniela, but
I love Dylan.
I don't see them winning, unfortunately. And she is just like, I think she's the best
stunning
professional dancer that they have. But
and she's so nice. Her and is it Pasha she's married to? Like they're just the cutest also. But I don't see them making it to the end. But Dylan is like a really nice person. I've seen some of the other stuff that he's been on, and I just I watch Traders. Rachel, I think you watch Traders too. Yeah, and I love Dylan, so I'm on team Dylan as well. But I don't think he's gonna make it either.
Yeah, I definitely don't think he'll be like top 3, but
Yeah, for
this will
sure.
go pretty far.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to see who wins, and yeah, maybe we'll have JR on in the future to talk more gossip with him because I
Yeah,
love the JR gossip. Let me tell you. Have you had a chance to hear from JR, Allie, in some
I
of
have
the
not.
podcasts? Well, you'll have to go back and watch because we do talk with JR. I feel like every time he comes on, I'm always like, JR, what's your Dancing with the Stars drama? Like, what's the scoop you've got? And he always has some good drama for us.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy to think, I know we're always kind of talking to about like survivors in Hollywood and the media and things like that, like JR was on Dancing with the Stars. And it's just like
Because it's
kind
like
of
one of the greatest television shows. Like I love watching Dancing with the Stars every season, and it's like I'm always like that and Big Brother. I'm like there isn't like nobody's gonna talk to me. I'm gonna sit and watch this television right now. So well, awesome, Allie. I know we're coming up on time here soon, so I do want to ask you. I know we always ask 2 final questions for our survivors. So the first is, what gives you hope when things are feeling heavy?
Trying to think. I feel like I just think about my family support and just like how close I am with them, and that like really they can get me through anything and just to lean on them.
Awesome. Yep,
I love
I
that.
think I can't agree more.
Yeah. And, it is time for our final question, which is our Phoenix partner question today, sponsored by NFPA. So their question is, what do you hope someone listening to your story today feels or learns?
I hope that people listening today feel uplifted and hopefully not ashamed of their scars and their experience if they were prior to, because I know that is often like a natural reflex or feeling that a lot of people experience. And so I'm hoping that by me sharing my story and just talking with you guys, that they're able to feel more confident in themselves and their experiences and their scars, and just recognize like how amazing of a person they are and how they persevered through something so hard, and just how amazing that is.
Amazing. We really appreciate you joining us and providing the young adult perspective. This has been really fun, and we will be sure to share everything we talked about and any additional links in our show notes. With that said, Allie, we also are very excited to hear about your SOAR journey and hope that you have a lot of fun, but also it's makes that meaningful impact that we know that SOAR can. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
You have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
You too.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Girls with Grafts. If you are enjoying this content, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.